All right, awesome. So we'll be doing 5 laps in the Baja race truck here.
Okay.
A couple things I will talk about that Robbie's already gone over a few times already, but it's just good to hit a couple
Water
more
truck
points.
is coming off course.
We've got the wheel straight when we're going up that hill to go over those jumps. When we get to the top of the jump, I'm going to tell you to lift. I just want you to lift off that throttle. And you're going to hold that wheel straight all the way to the ground. The very first thing we'll do when we land on the ground is give it a little bit of gas. Once that truck is kind of settled, we're going to give it a little gas, and then we can manipulate the steering wheel any way we need to. But giving it gas will just kind of settle that rear, as Robbie was telling you about the weight shifting on these trucks. That's what we want to do. We're going to send a little weight to that rear. That'll make that rear squat down and make it more stable so that we can make any adjustments we need to. The last thing I'll talk about is the inputs on the truck. Wheel, gas, brake. We're going to be smooth on all of those. Nice and smooth on that wheel, nice and smooth on that accelerator, nice and smooth on the brake. With the accelerator, I'm going to be using terms as roll on the throttle, feed the throttle, and work on the throttle. Those are my 3 favorite ways to describe how we're going to get on that throttle. The working on it is working on it all the way down. If you want to go full throttle, that's great. I love going full throttle, but we want to work our way down to full throttle. What we don't want to do is try to jam on it as we're coming out of a turn. What it does is immediately sends that power back to the rear, and if we're coming out of a turn, it'll put you offline, it'll kind of push you out, it'll cause understeer. In a turn, it will cause oversteer, so try not to give it any throttle while we're in the turns either. Any questions on that?
Nope, I don't think so.
Awesome. All right. Foot on the brake. You're going to use your left foot for the brake today, just like a go-kart. And we're going to shift it on down into second gear. All right. Straight over towards that pavement section over there. Once we get on that pavement, we'll kind of rock it back and forth so we can feel that suspension and that body roll with the compression and decompression. All right. And giving it a little throttle over towards the pavement. There we go. And continue giving it throttle. Now rock it back and forth. Go deep right, deep left. There you go. Just like that so we can kind of feel that compression, decompression. And now we'll straighten it out. We're going just to the right of that little green sign right there that says entrance. And we'll follow it right down that little cone alley. At the end of that little cone alley, we're going to make a 90-degree right-hand turn. And then we'll go down there and do a brake function check. And we'll talk about the brakes for a quick second and then get going. All right. Give it full gas. All the way to the bottom down there. And now we're going to give it a hard brake. Perfect. There you go. And as you see what happened there, when we give it that brake, all that weight goes to the front, and that weight's got to come from somewhere. It's going to come from the rear. So what you want to do is when we get out there, and you can continue on all the way up to the first start point while I'm talking about this. While you're giving it brake and sending it all that weight to the front, it's going to make that rear nice and loose. So what you want to do is brake in a straight line. Once we get into the turn, you don't want a hard brake like that because it is going to take all that weight, put it on the front, take it off the rear, and spin us out.
Okay.
All right. Any questions on the brakes?
I don't think so.
All right. I think we're ready to go then. Fire and safety, truck 8, 5 laps. Truck 8, come on up. Go ahead and give it gas. And we are good to go all the way to the top of your first jump here. And lift back on that throttle. And brakes, off the brakes, nose it in, back to that green cone. Back on your throttle now. Working on your throttle all the way through this section, staying to that right-hand side. You're going to stay right and stay on the throttle through your turn. Don't lift in the turn. Turn in with throttle. And now straight line brake. Come off your brake. Carry that speed into your turn, nice and tight to the right. Throttle to the outside. Back to the left. Off your throttle, nose it in, back to that right-hand side. Get it pointed where we want it. Now back on the throttle. And you're giving it throttle all the way to the top of that jump. Staying in that middle just like we are. And lift. Back on the throttle. Middle section through here. Looking ahead through our turn there. And just a little brake staying middle. And now turning in low. All the way down to the green. Back on the throttle. Nicely done. And lift. Turn in. Back on your throttle outside. All the way left. And lift, nose it into the right, back on your throttle now. Feeding your throttle all the way through here, staying in that middle section now. Off throttle, nose in, back to the right, back on your throttle now. Keep on feeding it all the way to the top. This is our big jump here. And lift, back on that throttle now. All right, a little brake, back to the right, all the way over, and back on that throttle now. Keep on feeding it all the way to the top, middle section. And lift. Back on that throttle. There we go. A little brake, nose it in, back to the right, and work on that throttle. Keep on feeding it all the way through this section. Stay to that right-hand side with your throttle. And with throttle, turn in. And brake straight now. Come off the brake, back in tight. Back on your throttle now, to the left side. Off throttle, nose in, back to the right. Back on your throttle now, feed it. Back to the top, staying in that middle section. Keep on giving it throttle. And lift. Now back on that throttle, middle section. Looking ahead through our turn. And just let it coast at that speed there, middle section. Now get in low, all the way down. Turn in a little more, back on your throttle. There we go, throttle. Lift, turn in, back on your throttle. And lift, turn in, back to the right, back on your throttle now. Feed it to the top. Here we go, big jump. And lift. Throttle out. Little brake, staying in that middle section. Now off the brake, turn in tight to the right. Back on your throttle now, keep on feeding it, stay on that throttle. There we go. Now turn in. You having fun? Yeah, good. Doing a great job. Stay into that right-hand side with your throttle. Stay on that throttle all the way to the brake zone. Turn in with throttle. Now straight line brake. And turn in and throttle out. All the way down to green, back on your throttle. Now feed the throttle all the way to the top. Stay on the throttle. There you go. Stay to that right-hand side now. Keep on that throttle. Turn in with throttle. Stay on it. And straight line brake. Come off your brake. Carry that speed down into your turn. Back on your throttle now. Back to the outside. And lift, nose in, back on the throttle. Feed it all the way to the top. There you go, a little throttle through here. And just a little brake. Come off that brake. And feed the throttle to that outside. Lift, nose in, back on the throttle. And bring it back to the middle section. Off throttle, back to the right. Now back on the throttle. Keep feeding it all the way to the top. Last time over the big jump here. Big throttle, big jump. And lift. And throttle. Nicely done. Now bring it back over to that right-hand side. Start working on that throttle. Keep on feeding it. Stay on that throttle. There we go, giving it throttle all the way through here. Stay on it as you turn in, and now straight line brake. Come off your brake. Nose it in. Throttle it out. Off your throttle, nose it in, and back on that throttle. All right, last jump here. There we go, a little throttle, middle section, and brakes. Come off your brake. Throttle out. All right, go ahead and slow it on down. We're going to exit to the left-hand side up there. Good driving.
Thank you.
What'd you think?
It was fun.
Good.
It's, got to get in the right mindset to throttle through turns.
Yeah, when you're coming out of that turn, you're like, you really want me to get on the throttle here?
Yeah.
It's all right. Back here in the middle. These things are fun to drive though, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
This is the most fun thing I've ever driven.